These events, we have been having a series of conversations called Faith Exchange. Let me give a little bit of history. This church was founded in 1683. In 1683, we had a congregational meeting house, not a congregational church. And it was called a congregational meeting house because it was here before there was a town. So everything that happened in town really took place in that meeting house. Not just religious events, but civic events, and really where people just kind of came together for the town gossip. Over the course of the past few centuries, we've kind of moved out of that central location in the life of the town. But we have made a commitment that we're going to have conversations in a time where it can really feel like our town, our state, our country, our world can be more divided than ever. We are having the conversation, even when it can be messy. Right? And we've made the commitment that we're going to have conversations with people of all stripes. Whether you are Democrat or Republican or Libertarian or Socialist or somewhere in between or off the spectrum, we don't care that we are going to have the conversation. So here we are, as we are coming down to the end of this Faith Exchange season. We are having 3 kind of final Faith Exchanges of the year that are a bit different than where we started off the year. In the beginning of the year, I was having one-on-one conversations with both political figures as well as other community leaders. But we are coming up on a set of municipal elections on November 2nd, just in case you haven't heard. And so we are having panel discussions with our municipal candidates. Last Monday night, if you missed it, was the candidates for town council district seats. Tonight, we are having a discussion with the Board of Education candidates. Next Monday night, we will have a discussion with the town council at-large seats. So friends, help me welcome our candidates. Folks, let me give just some logistics before we get started, both to the folks who are seated in the house as well as to our candidates. Number one, this is not a debate. This is a time where we are getting to know these people. So at no point in time will questions be received from the audience. That questions will be given to each person individually and no one else. They get to answer the question for themselves without expecting reprisal from anyone else. You who are seated here are expected to remain quiet through the entire time that we have together, and we are going to be respectful while we are sitting here in the church together. As a word of full disclosure, in our previous faith exchanges that we have had, I have already had a full hour with 2 of our candidates, and you can watch those faith exchanges at some point in the future if you would like to. And those 2 are Scott Ryder and John LeBlanc. If you are watching on Facebook right now, those links should be next to this live video. But for everybody else, this is their first shot at this, and we are going to enjoy this time that we have together. What I said to the folks who were for the town council last week, and it's just as important for you, is that number one, I am a Killingly voter, so I don't have a dog in this fight for any of you. I'm going to cast my vote in Danielson, Connecticut on November 2nd. But one thing that goes along with that is, in the last municipal elections, my town councilman lost her seat by 1 vote. And so any time that you can get in front of a captive audience, as well as those people who are watching at home, is a good time, right? To get your name and your face out there. So use your time well. John, you are up first. You're our first contestant on The Price is Right. John, the way that I get these questions is by the biographies that were sent to me, and so I get to ask you about yourself and just to get you to tell me something about yourself so that we get to know who you are. Tell me about working in aerospace for 33 years. That sounds super interesting.
Well, first off, Pastor Greg, thank you. Appreciate this opportunity to speak. And for those of you who came out here tonight, who are seated here, thank you for coming. And those online, thank you for tuning in. So about aerospace, basically, I went to school in Ohio, grew up in Enfield. And after I got out of college, I tried to apply for a few jobs. And there was an opening at a company called Kaman, K-A-M-A-N, in Bloomfield, Connecticut. And they're a large aerospace manufacturer. They build helicopters. And I applied for a position that was in procurement. And they said that they weren't hiring anybody who didn't have procurement experience, but they would put my resume on file. And I thought it was actually going in the circular file off the side of the desk. But I got a call a couple of weeks after that, and they said, John, could you come in and interview? We have a position in our marketing department. And I went in, and it was with one of their subsidiary companies called Comatics. And I was fortunate enough to get hired for that position. And so it began a long career with a really extraordinary and great company. And so I spent over 30 years with Kaman Aerospace in sales and in their business development department. It allowed me to travel almost all over the country and travel a good part of the world, of which I've seen a portion of it in that great industry of aerospace. So a lot of good people, a lot of great companies, and just tremendous experience.
Awesome. So tell me how your strengths in aerospace helps you on the Board of Education.
Well, as part of marketing and business development, you deal with a lot of contracts. And with contracts, there are things like terms, conditions, contractual rules, and so forth. And understanding that, and it applies directly to a position that I now hold on the policy committee. And so you can see a relationship then between understanding how important terms are and how important policy is. So there's no sense in having redundancy. You try to streamline things, and I think there's a direct application to policy.
Okay. One more last question, and I'm going to move on, but I've been interested in this one because, you know, I'm from Georgia, and y'all folks in Connecticut do things a little differently. So whenever I was growing up, and I'm picking on you, John, because you're currently the vice chair of the board, correct? Right? So whenever I was growing up, and we were voting for Board of Education folks, that we would not have had a time like this of Democrats and Republicans because it was a nonpartisan board. Is this better?
Is this better? I mean, having two parties?
Well, I mean, so 2/3, I looked it up today because I was interested in this. 2/3 of the country does not have political affiliations on the board. Like, you would just be running as John, not John R.
Right. Well,
what are your feelings on that?
I have no experience on just running for the board as a member. I do have experience, though, with being Republican or a part of the Republican Party. And so I think I've always aligned with the values I see today in the Republican Party. I wasn't always a Republican. There was a day when I was a Democrat, and I was known as what you would call today a Kennedy Democrat. So when Kennedy said, ask not, what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. And I think I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me. They departed from what I see. They've departed from that principle of seeing what you can do for your country rather than looking for what the country can do for me. I don't like the partisan politics. I just don't like that part of it. It's unfortunate, but if that's what I have to endure to help serve my community, then I'm willing to do that and willing to take that on.
All right, thank you. Gerald, you're up next. So, Gerald, you've been a doctor in town for a while now. How does being a local doctor serve you on the Board of Education?
Well, I've gotten to learn a lot about Enfield. Actually, I'm also almost a lifelong resident. I spent a lot of my boyhood here. And I've spent about 31 years in primary care pediatrics. And during that period of time, I think I've really come to understand the central importance of education in the health of children. Health leads to a good education. A good education leads to good health. And so over the years, I've had an opportunity to speak to lots of teachers, school nurses, school administrators, and superintendents of school. And I've really come to understand the problems and the challenges that schools face in terms of health management in a school environment. So I think that places me in a good position to be on the board. I've served the children of Enfield and their families for over 3 decades, and I think I can continue to serve them and address the same issues now, not only as a pediatrician, but also as a member of the Board of Education.
So, I just saw your signs up last year. You were just running last year. So there are probably people who are here that know this answer better than I do, but I'll ask the question anyway, because I ask it to most people who come and sit here for a faith exchange. Why are you a Democrat?
Well, I believe that the Democratic Party is and always has been a party of the people, a part of the party of the working class, and it's represented their interests faithfully over the centuries. I'm not diminishing the Republican Party in any way, but I think that the focus of the Democratic Party has always been on the working man and woman.
Thank you. Gene, I read your bio, and I decided that we were going to be friends. Whether you realize it or not, I decided that we were going to be friends because I got my degree in music from the University of Georgia and my doctoral degree from Boston University. Go Terriers. So I was like, my goodness, we're going to have something in common. I appreciate that. So, my goodness, a degree in music, Boston University, 40 years in the classroom.
Yes, that's right.
My goodness. I guess the question goes without asking, but I will anyway. Tell me how your strengths will help you on the Board of Education.
I feel that by being in the school system for 40 years and being in an urban school system in Springfield, Massachusetts, I think that my training, professional development, all the expertise and knowledge in education, all the practices that I did for those 40 years will help me make sound decisions on Infield's board.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. So my follow-up question for you then. So I will tell you, I love municipal elections, primarily because we are neighbors, right? That, Joe Biden, the governor of the state, whatever happens with those people, you're not going to run into them at Big Y the next day. Well, November 3rd is going to come, and you're going to run into these people at Stop and Shop. I'm a Stop and Shop shopper, just in case y'all wanted to know. Not Big Y, Stop and Shop. So, we still have to be neighbors, regardless. what can you do to work with each other across the aisle with your neighbors that you're going to be dealing with on November 3rd?
What I can do, you mean like representing and presenting myself to people that I run into? Because I do work in a store.
It's
I
your
work at
question to
Target.
answer.
I do work at Target, so you're right. I might run into parents and people, and if they stop and ask me, I will answer the questions that they have or concerns or issues the best I can, but with kindness and respect, because I think that's really important in these days. People being tolerant of each other, respecting each other's differences, and accepting each other's, different races and cultures and so on. I really think that's important, getting along with people and being a good listener. That's really important to me in conversation, when people really tune in and focus and hear what you have to say or what you would like to say and give their opinions. That's important to me.
Thank you. Thank you. Joshua, you've got some roots into the Enfield Public School right now. 3 kids that have been involved in public school. And then you have been volunteering with community theater and all of that kind of stuff. Tell me how those experiences, those strengths, are going to play on the Board of Education.
Oh, that's a great question, Pastor Greg. And first off, I want to thank you for having us here. This is a really great opportunity to speak on some really important topics. So with the 3 children, my oldest is now at Eastern Connecticut State University, and then my 2 younger children are both at Enfield High School, senior and freshman. But through their educational years, they've gone through Enfield Public Schools, Enfield Parochial School, the Crack Magnet school systems, as we as a family adjusted to where their interests lie and what opportunities were the best for them at the time that we had to make decisions. So that, as the basis for our decisions and the way that we addressed education with our children, along with the involvement in the local community theaters, I got involved in the theaters almost as a dare, but more as a way to show an example to my children, especially my oldest, who was at the Greater Hartford Academy of the Arts Middle School at the time. They were exploring the opportunity to get involved in the backstage productions, assistant manager, things like that. And the opportunity came along for me to become involved with the Opera House Players, to do sound for them for one of the shows, and to demonstrate to my children that they could do anything that they wanted to do and explore whatever they wanted to explore to get the most out of their lives, to experience the best that they can achieve. I demonstrated that by doing the sound for the theater, and I've been doing that for a couple of different theaters now for over the last 5-6 years or so, seeing some remarkable shows and finding a really deep love for a genre that I never imagined I'd get into. And to that point, I just wanted to point out that Command Corporation also makes some really great acoustic guitars, the Ovation series.
Oh my goodness, I love this. We're finding common ground already.
Yes, I literally almost fell off my chair when I heard that. I'm like, yes.
We're 19 minutes in and bridging divides. I love this. So Joshua, I'm looking at your bio here, and I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. So Opera House Players, to Little League, to military support, to band and theater programs in the high school. And so the thing that I wanted to ask you about, because that's a diverse bio,
Yes.
how do you serve the diversity of Infield?
That's another great question. So in my role right now, I work with the shelter guests that are staying in the shelter that I work for. And my primary clientele are the veterans that are there. And as the veteran population is, of course, a subset of the active military population, and that population is a subset of the population as a general, as a whole, you get the entire spectrum of the population that will come through the doors at any given time. So we have a low demand model in our program, which would mean that the clients that come in can be dealing with their substance abuse issues, whether it's hard substances or alcohol abuse or behavioral health issues, and we do not hold it against them to make a path towards their permanent housing. So as they come into the program, they could be going through their substances, and without penalty, we will work with them to get them housed. We will help them connect with the recovery sources if they want to. And I'm getting a little bit off track here, but it's a wide spectrum of the population that can come through the doors, and it's working with them without judging them for what they've gone through, who they are, what they've done. A lot of the veterans are not happy with what they've experienced, whether through the role that they've had in the military or the things that they've had to do when in the military. So they're dealing with their own demons, and the last thing they need is someone else being judgmental about what they've experienced and what they're struggling with to this day. And to be clear, my population, my clientele runs from World War II veterans up to post 9/11 Iraqi and Afghanistan veterans. It's a very wide spectrum of demographics that I work with, and it really gives me the opportunity to see beyond any paradigm, any demographic that they could be categorized in. And it's for that reason that my approach to the student population here in Enfield is exactly that. Whatever their background is, whatever their belief structure is, whatever their interests are, I believe that they can become the best individual that they know to be, as long as they have that support structure to guide them and answer the questions for them and point them in the directions of opportunity that they may or may not know exist.
Thank you. Teresa, you're up next.
Hi, Pastor John. Greg. Sorry, Pastor Greg.
It's all right. I've been called worse. So I am super impressed with the bio that I received from you. Not only military service and fire, but also putting yourself through college and a single mom, like all of that kind of stuff put together with tutoring students and now bookkeeping.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a skill set to draw from. How are your strengths going to serve you on the Board of Education?
Well, that only covers a smidgen.
Right, well, I don't have that much time.
Yeah,
Teresa.
no, I know. My strengths lie in a lot of different areas. As you know, I did go to school, and I have a dual degree in accounting and psychology. And as a single mom, I focused a lot on child developmental psychology. So I bring that to the table. The bookkeeping, I own my own business now, so I went from welfare to owning my own company. So that aspect of dealing with a lot of different people, cultures, and backgrounds across the board really helped me to connect with the community, with my clients, with my family, with my friends, all in all.
Wonderful. I'll just tell you that anytime somebody tells me they have a degree in psychology, I just automatically assume that you're judging, like, figuring out
I'm
who
analyzing all the time.
All the
Greg.
time.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. That's scary, Teresa. I just want you to know that.
You're afraid.
Right. So, November 2021. Why is now the time to run for office?
Now is the time to run for office. My son is all grown up. I've done my job. He's a self-sufficient, independent, productive, contributing member of society. He just got married, so he's on his own and doing his own thing, and I'm very proud of him. So that leaves me with just me and my business. And I tend to like to have my iron in many areas. I think now is the time, especially with the different issues that are facing our town and our nation, that I can bring to the forefront what I like to practice on a regular basis, which is be the change you want to see. So I try and practice that. on a regular basis, on a daily basis. I don't like to see intolerance. I don't like to see unfairness. I don't like to see discrimination. I don't like to see any of those things, racism, any of that. So I practice tolerance. I practice fairness. I don't discriminate. I have a wide, eclectic, diverse clientele that the psychology degree comes in handy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tina.
Hello.
There we go. Good. All right. So you have some roots into the Enfield school system as well. 2 kids that have graduated from the Enfield public schools, and you have been on the board for a while, volunteering also with Enfield High Safe Grad and the Enfield Eagles Gridiron Club. Like you're in there with the school system. So tell me, how did those strengths help you on the Board of Education?
Well, first, I feel like being a parent, I can relate to the other parents in the school system. I have one student left. He's a senior at Enfield High. And not only being a parent in the school system is an effective way to be a board member, but also your community involvement with the parent groups. Because when the kids were younger, I was involved in a lot of the PTOs and Enfield Soccer Association. So when you are focused on a community-based involvement, you get to know the community, and the parents feel that they have an ally that they can come to. They know that you're in there with them, you're listening to their concerns, and I've always prided myself on that. I also pride myself on the fact that I like to keep an open communication with the parents, and especially during the pandemic, communicating from the superintendent to the parents to make sure that they were well informed of what they could expect from our school year, because those were very challenging times, and I was living it along with them.
Okay. So you have at the end of your bio kind of what I would say is a catchphrase, and I appreciate alliteration. Alliteration is a lovely literary device. She stands behind equity, economy, and education, the 3 E's. I don't know what that means. Tell me what that means.
The 3 E's for Enfield. Equity is very important, and equity is important when it comes to what we are focusing on in the school district, and equity is very important as what we are focusing in on a town. Equity is different than equitable. We want stakeholders to be able to come to the table and feel heard. We value that. Economy, we need to be conservative, but we need to also be prepared to invest our money, especially in our infrastructures, especially our schools. Because right now, what we're seeing with the schools is a little challenging. Education, I'm a huge proponent for. I believe in public school education. I believe that it takes a village, and education, especially the public school education in Enfield, is the village that some of the parents do rely heavily on to help us. I know I did. Having teachers be active members of the community as well. Teachers will be at students' soccer games, at football games, at their recitals, whether it's dance or music, at their play productions. So I believe when you take equity, economy, and education, and you put focus on that, and the politics aside, it's your winning 3 E's for Enfield.
Gotcha. Thank you. Janet, so you have a BA both in elementary education and deaf education. That's interesting. Tell me about how those strengths will help you on the Board of Education.
I just have a passion for teaching, and over the past 25 years, I've had the opportunity to teach both professionally, to tutor, as well as to home educate my own children. So it's given me, which actually opened doors for me to do some teaching within a co-op where we had about 100 students, and it was quite a variety of student ages, ethnicities. And so it was a really great opportunity for me to explore, even when I was teaching professionally, developing curriculums with my own children or with, teaching at our co-op, having the opportunity to do a lot of research into curriculums and just finding the best materials that there were. So that's something that I feel really strongly about.
So I will tell you, Janet, I was reading through your bio, and there's a big chunk of it that was like after you left the classroom teaching homeschool, and it says all 5 of her children from kindergarten to 12th grade were educated at home. So my question for that is, homeschool, why are you running for the Board of Education?
That's a good question. But it's not like, I think I could say growing up, my passions were to be a teacher and to be a mom. And I really had thought that those 2 dreams would be compatible. But when I was teaching, I realized it's a very demanding career, as many of our teachers would testify to. And I realized it would be difficult for me to give my all for teaching and give my all for a family. And I knew I wanted to have a bigger family. So when I decided that I would be that I would choose to stay home with my children, I felt a little sad leaving behind a career. But when my first child was just a few months old, I started to learn about homeschooling, and I thought, what an amazing opportunity that would be, that I could still fulfill both of my dreams, to be a mom and a teacher. So it wasn't that I had disdain for the schools. I just saw it as an opportunity for me to embrace my dreams and invest in my own children. And now as they're grown and gone, I mean they've moved on. Some are in college and some are on their own and married. I just feel like this is a perfect season for me to step into investing now in my community.
Okay, thank you. Amanda, so you are a mother of 2 Enfield Public School students and a certified social worker. So tell me about how your strengths in social work are going to serve you on the board.
All right. Thank you again for having us, and thank you to those of you that are here and online. I feel like this is a job interview, so, but I didn't dress the part, but it's okay.
It kind of is, actually.
Perfect. All right. So then how would I answer this now? So the interesting part is I have a social work degree, and my social work kind of resume, my professional experience is really non-conventional. So I'm not a clinical social worker doing, therapy or group work with folks. I have that experience, but I've always been in the professional learning kind of community. So I've worked with open choice students. I supported kindergarten students in my career. I worked in a substance misuse prevention program. I supervised a home visiting program for at-risk moms. And then I got into this passion for how do I connect these experiences in professional learning and development with school? And I started doing more training that way. And so I think my skills of working with folks, having lots of different professional experiences that have shaped my career, and actually my social work degree now serves me working in the field of education, lets me be connected professionally, but also personally by making connections to folks.
Awesome. So your follow-up question, Amanda. November 2nd, 2021. Not 2019, not 2023. Why is November 2nd, 2021 the time for you to run?
I was kind of hoping you were going to ask me that.
I did it just for you.
I heard you ask it already, and I was like, shucks, I missed it. So for me, I have 2 little ones in school, a first grader and a preschooler. So being involved in my community and in the schools is personally important to me because I have little ones in the school. Secondly, I think there is amazing opportunity in Enfield, and I think this time is a time of opportunity. It's been years now of crisis and health pandemic, and I think we're hopefully in a change here where we have the opportunity to do great things. We have an amazing community around us, community partners and organizations. We have amazing school leaders and staff. We have amazing families in our community, and I think now is the opportunity to really do what's best for Enfield, and I hope to be part of that change.
Wonderful, thank you. John, as I told our folks as we were getting started, we've already had a full hour together, so folks can go back and watch that hour. But here we are together again. So you have experience as a parapro in a school, as well as a whole bunch of sports stuff. So we could we could talk about sports stuff later. But so you have experience, in a school system, in a classroom. Tell me about how those strengths are going to serve you on the board.
Well, that para role you're referring to, since we last talked, I took a new position over at Holyoke High School in an administrative role over there. So I've gone from seeing the younger age students when I was working in the para role I was with first graders, split my time between 2 first grade classrooms, and they're a handful. They're a fun bunch though, and it was cool to see because each kid, especially at that age, has their own personality, and they're just coming into age when they're trying to figure out who they are as a kid, as an individual, and you got to help them grow and overcome some challenges that may be there. A lot of tears, sometimes coming into school or keeping kids focused on work, and it's great to see the growth that they've had, especially in such a challenging year, with the mask and the social distancing that they all had to go through, and trying to play out at recess, but not being able to play tag with their friends or just kid stuff that they were used to. And now over at the Holyoke position, now I'm seeing a different phase of it, where it's now kids who are getting ready to go on to their adult lives. And I think both experiences combined is giving me a broad range to see both ends of the spectrum.
Okay, you get a recycled question too, John. It's not just a man duck. So you have seen different kinds of classroom experiences. So you get that kind of diversity that the Board of Education is going to have to deal with. So how are you, with your experience, going to serve the diversity of Infield students and families?
Well, that's a good question. Personally, I think it comes from the experience I have of the paraprofessional role was in South Hadley, so it was more of a community. Actually, it was actually smaller than Enfield, and now I'm in Holyoke, which is one of the bigger cities in this area. So to pull from both those perspectives, along with pulling from outside perspectives of volunteering throughout town, I think it all is going to tie very well together to continue on the Board of Education.
Awesome, thank you. Scott, so we have also had a full hour together, and so people who are watching at home right now can scroll back and watch our hour together as well. But for right now, here we are, and you volunteer here, there, and everywhere. That's my short version.
I'm very shy. I'm an introvert,
Right?
but I try to get out there, yes.
So I'll give just the brief version then. An EPS mentor since 2015, an EPS PTO coordinator since 2018, parents to 2 students in the public school system. Tell me about how your strengths are going to serve you on the Board of Education.
Well, despite the fact that I didn't grow up in Enfield, I grew up in a town very similar to Enfield as far as proximity to the state capitol. I grew up about 20 minutes outside of Albany, New York, similar to where we are here in Enfield as far as Hartford. A lot of my friends growing up, their parents were state workers. My father was the class dad. So he would come and play kickball with us, on Fridays. My mom actually worked at the preschool that was off to the side of the school where my sister and I were educated. And although I didn't grow up here, this is where my children are growing up. When we moved here that same summer, they turned 1 and 4. So when my daughter started kindergarten at Hazardville Memorial School in the fall of 2013, I walked her into school and I introduced myself to the principal and I said, is there a thing here called like a PTO? I've seen it in TV shows, seen it in movies. If there is, I work from home. My wife has the 9 to 5, also in Bloomfield. But not at the cool guitar Aerospace company. She works for Cigna, although I'd love to work for an aerospace guitar company. So I work from home. I do meetings and events for corporate clients. So unless I'm on the road traveling, which I only do about once a quarter, I'm home. I bring them to soccer, to dance, to play dates at friends' houses. So it was always my goal to be involved with them, like my parents were, with my classrooms growing up as a class dad, et cetera. And I wanted to be the fun PTO dad / DJ / book fair director / anything I can do in the schools. And that's what I've done. I volunteer, not the last 2 years because, we haven't had that opportunity with the world and the masks and whatnot. But any other school year, minus the last 18, 19 months, I volunteer in the buildings over 100 hours a year. It's very important to me here's the end goal, if I can share a secret. I want my kids to not get invited to spray paint the bridge after the senior football game. So what I was thinking is if everybody knows who Lauren's dad is, Lauren won't get the invite, she won't get in trouble, and she'll be home eating ice cream watching Little Mermaid with me. So that's why I'm invested. It's a long-term investment, but I want all the kids to know who I am, and I think most of them do, because I want to be the go-to thing to do on a Friday night versus, get in trouble with the friends.
Gotcha. Okay. So we've heard this question before as well. November 3rd is going to come, and there are people who are seated in this room who are not going to vote for you. There are people who are seated on this stage who are going to be in meetings that are not going to vote with you. How do you work together in a community even when it's messy?
Because I'm not in the meetings to necessarily go out with 9 of my coworkers on a Friday for a beverage. I'm there for my kids and for my neighbors' children and for my older neighbors' grandchildren. I do what I do for the kids in the schools, so they have the best school experience. So if on occasion we have a heated discussion amongst us, or we're in a subcommittee meeting and we have a lot of back and forth, I have to stick to what is inside of me and what I'm doing for our 5,000 children of Enfield Public Schools. So I'm going to take that stance and be okay if that rubs somebody the wrong way one week. Maybe we'll all agree on something next month. But I'm okay with that.
All right, thank you. If you'll pass your mic down as I'm going to try to pick up the pace a little bit at this point. We've kind of got the hard stuff out of the way. What you're going to hear next is what I ask every person that comes and sits with me for our faith exchange. It's called Faith Exchange for a reason. So if you've watched any of these, you knew this question was coming. So we here at Enfield Congregational United Church of Christ do our best to serve our community in every way that we can, whether it is food or shelter or clothing or spiritual needs, whatever it is. We do that because we feel that we have been called to do that by Christ. Now, I do not believe that anyone has to have that kind of faith background or any faith background at all in order to be a wonderful community servant. community leader, right? John, I'm looking at your resume and you got all kinds of stuff on there. So I want to ask you the question, why do you serve the town of Enfield?
I serve the town of Enfield. I think there's a variety of reasons why I'm looking to serve the town of Enfield, why I am serving the town of Enfield. And this is one that I think you've heard many times, but it's true, which is I want to give back to the community. And I say that because I grew up in this town from an infant. I remember growing up in the north section of Enfield, went to school there. I remember the old places on Enfield Street, and I'm going to name a few because some people may resonate with that. But I'm going up to, I remember the Donut Delight on Route 5 and to Willigers, and going up and remember Bob's Variety and going into Old Thompsonville, the Teen Center and W.T. Grant's down there. And where the mall is today, there used to be a bowling alley. And I've seen Enfield change over the years. I've been part of that. And Enfield has been good to me. I graduated from Enrico Fermi High School. My wife graduated from Enfield High School. We both met at Asnuntuck Community College. And we from Asnuntuck, we transferred. I went to the University of Steubenville in Steubenville, Ohio. And not long after we graduated college were we married. And so 2 days from today will be 37 years. So and I've come back to, and I've even after college, I've come back and I've made Enfield our home. Our two children grew up here in Enfield. Both of them graduated from Enrico Fermi High School. One of them today is a teacher in our Enfield school system, which is interesting because we will go out to Costco and I'll hear people say, "Oh, hello, Mr. Ungeyer," and I think they're speaking to me, and they're speaking to my son, who's a teacher. But Enfield has been good to me. It's been good to my family. I've been blessed to be a resident of Enfield. And so at this point in my life, I have some time. I have the energy and the ambition and the experience to serve the community. And so that's why I want to do this for the Board of Education, for the students and the administration of Enfield. And this is a corny little thing that I came up with the other day, but there's no field like Enfield. And that's really how I feel about it. And so I say about giving back, well, this is a way to help serve the community, to use your skills, use your talents for the benefit of the community. I see what's happened here. I see the Enfield High School, which is a jewel of a high school, the new middle school, which is being built, and so the education system in Enfield is progressing. We're going to be retaining higher quality teachers because the system here is so good, and I just want to help to make it even better.
Awesome. I will tell you, John, that my best friend is a special needs teacher in Georgia. And we'll be at a grocery store together, and one of her kids will come up to her just absolutely shocked that she goes to the grocery store and doesn't live at the school. So I understand those words of, Mrs. Eisner, what are you doing here? Gerald, why do you serve the town of Enfield?
Well, I almost sound like a broken record here, but my roots are really in Enfield. My father was in the Air Force, and I'm an Air Force brat, and we moved all over the country. One of the last places he settled was here in Enfield, and I came here as a third grader, and we moved away because my father was transferred to New York and then to Georgia, Warner Robins.
It's God's country. Yeah.
And but then we came back to Enfield, and I think that's been the theme for my life. I always came back to Enfield. went off to college, then medical school. And after medical school, I went to Rhode Island to do a fellowship in infectious diseases. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to spend the rest of my life doing infectious diseases. But then I thought about it, and I started to think, no, I'd like to serve my community. I would like to be a doctor who's taking care of kids in the community. And I came back to Enfield. My practice started off, it was a very modest practice, but I gradually built it over the years. And I got to know so many families here and their aspirations and their worries and their concerns. And I got so much from the citizens of Enfield, so much support. And when it was time for me to retire, I thought, what better way to retire than to return the favor and to serve as a member of the Board of Education. There are some, this is a wonderful town, but we also have challenges here. Challenges that I noted throughout my career. I was particularly concerned about mental health challenges, and most especially the mental health challenges of young children. And I thought, this is a very difficult problem to deal with just in the context of a primary care practice. Is there something else I could do beyond that? Well, now I'm retired, and I realize there is something that I can actually tackle these issues of mental health issues in a school setting from the standpoint not only as a pediatrician, but as a member of the Board of Education.
Thank you. Gene, why do you serve the town of Enfield? I've heard that there's no field like Enfield.
Maybe the people in Springfield might disagree, John. Because as you all know, I was raised and educated in Springfield, but I do feel that God has placed me 4.5 years ago in Infield for a reason. And I'm currently serving on the board, and I also feel that that was a divine intervention too. And I just think that education, good education, sound education, children having a very strong foundation, and during their learning years, that's very important. I love education. I love learning, even at my old age. I just love learning about new things. And I just think that, children should have that opportunity of getting the best education that they can to make them successful, productive adults in our society. So I just think that's very important. Education, strong foundations, children learning. And I think learning should be fun, interactive, so not just, the doldrums of sitting in math and reading, but, additional excitement in the classroom, hands-on, things like that. And I know that Infield is great about, with, for example, the renovation of the JFK, and we got a chance to tour the renovations and so on, and it was just very, very exciting to see the technology, the music room, the art room, all those great things that the children will have, for the betterment of their future. And by the way, Pastor Gray, what is your instrument? Is it the cello over there?
It is not. I started playing the piano when I was 4. I could read music before I could read words, which was bizarre. But my degree is in voice.
Oh, so is mine. We should do a duet.
All right. Sunday morning, 10 o'clock. Joshua, why do you serve the town of Enfield?
That's a tough thing to follow right there. So I don't want to pass up the opportunity to thank the AV team here because I know what it's like to put on productions, and I appreciate the efforts that they're putting out. Thank you very much. Why do I serve? There's something that goes along with this thing about volunteering. These are volunteer positions we're all looking for. And the people that volunteer do that because they want to be part of something bigger than them, and because there's a need to fill. There's a void to fill up. So I got involved in the various organizations in the volunteer bases that I've had because there was a need. I raised my hand when the call came. I volunteered. I offered services when that was available, when there was a need to fill. So in this position, and over the years, I've learned to look at the wider spectrum, if you will, the bigger picture, to sound prophetic here. But there's a lot of need to speak for those that can't. There's a lot of need to speak for those that, for whatever reason, are not comfortable. And I want to speak to the people that may be watching online when I say this, that if you don't feel comfortable showing up at the town council meetings or at the Board of Ed meetings, that's where I've been coming in. That's what I've been doing. I've been speaking for those that are not comfortable doing that. And if I can speak on behalf of those individuals or those demographics, those populations that are not comfortable doing that, I'm more than happy to do that. I'm very happy to do that, in fact, because it gives their voice an avenue to get out and be expressed. So I want to volunteer in this capacity to be that voice for those that don't have the opportunity for whatever reason, whether it's their own inhibitions, if they're not able to for scheduling purposes, whatever it might be. But I want to be able to be available to the wide spectrum and let them know that no matter their concerns are valid and they deserve to have an audience. Thank you.
Teresa, why do you serve the town of Enfield?
Okay, well, a couple things. Fun fact, I took comparative religions in college as well, one of the many subjects. I also moved 36 times in 42 years. I did graduate from Enfield Fermi, from Enrico Fermi High in 1984. Left to go into the military, and I ended up coming back to Enfield and Connecticut to help take care of my father, who eventually passed in 2014. I literally live one street away from where I grew up. Really kind of surreal. But I established my business full-time, and it has excelled. I think that I am in a position now to bring my life experiences, my education, just everything that I have to be an advocate for the kids and be that person that can help with the education and bringing some of that unity that we need. The communication is a huge thing in order to teach and to do. That needs to be practiced clearly with all the division in the country right now. And I think in order to benefit the kids and to help them learn those skills to help them excel in life, not just in a job, but excel in life, they need to see that in practice from the adults in the room. They need to see the things that we talk about in practice, so that they can learn from it. Because there's many different types of learning: visual, audio, verbally, hands-on. And my days of tutoring, as well as my training and consulting with QuickBooks with my current clients, I try to gauge what the person needs and what the child needs in order to truly learn what they need to be success, not just in a job, but in life itself.
Thank you. Tina, why do you serve the town of Enfield?
Well, to give you a little bit of a background, in 1998, I lost my mom when I was pregnant with my daughter. And that was a defining moment in my life. And a lot of priorities changed, and it was one of the more harder things I had to endure. In 2010, I lost my dad, who owned a business in the town of Enfield at one point in time, and who was heavily involved in our community with sports and the 4th of July committee. And in 2011, as my kids were in HB Stowe School, there was talk of closing HB Stowe. And I started to go to Board of Ed meetings. And I realized that there were political decisions being made about my students' education. And the people making those decisions either chose not to educate their kids in the public schools or didn't have kids in the public schools. And so I threw my hat in the ring, and I won. And 10 years later, I'm still here. And 10 years later, I will tell you the same thing. Party politics should not be involved in the Board of Education. Like you had stated, 2/3 of the country does not involve political parties. I think when we walk in those doors, we have to remember that there's 5,000 students that we represent. And some of those students are very vulnerable. And through my 10 years, through education, through looking at myself with a lot of what's going on nationally, because national politics are definitely trickling down locally, I've educated myself a lot on equity, diversity, inclusion, and I've grown tremendously from that. And more recently, I've become what some students would consider an ally, and I'm extremely proud of that. And I will never stop working for them, but I will never stop working for 5,500 students. With that being said, I will never stop working for our teachers. I've had some amazing teachers help me with my kids, and some of the learning that my kids endured was they struggled, especially with reading. And I've had teachers pull me aside and say, look, I think this is how we can help, and if we do this, and teachers go above and beyond, and they should be championed and supported through their Board of Education. So after all this time, I realized I'm a lot like my dad. He loved this community. I'm one of 5 siblings. We all went to school in Enfield. We all graduated from Enfield schools. I married my high school sweetheart. We graduated from Vermi. We were raising our 3 kids. We'd love for them to settle in Enfield and be proud of the town they're settling in, and they choose to raise kids and live in Enfield. We'd love that for them. So after all that, I serve the town of Enfield because I want to serve the students, I want to serve the teachers, and I want to serve the families. And I think that has been ingrained in me from my parents.
Thank you. Janet, you've had a while to listen now. You give us a good answer. Why do you serve the town of Enfield?
There's really not much left to say. Everyone just have, yeah, exactly, right on. I just think Tina and John and I were just at a finance meeting before we came to a subcommittee meeting before we came to this. And on the wall in the office in which we met was a quote by Nelson Mandela that says, education is the greatest weapon with which to change the world. And I feel like Enfield has embraced that truly. You know, when I'm excited when I see and visit the Enfield High School. And when we go, you know, we got to visit the middle school, the great investment that they're doing structurally in the building is a wonderful thing to get to see how much Enfield is willing to invest. And there's also the other part of it that I feel like I could be a part of, investing into the actual schooling of the children, and just to invest in them, knowing that, you know, to offer them a rigorous academic program, to offer them a safe environment, that is preparing them for a future that's secure, and that in which they're going to be able to be productive citizens and flourish, really, and thrive. So that's something I enjoy being a part of.
Thank you. Amanda, why do you serve the town of Enfield?
So I have two beautiful babies at home that I think is really my leading passion for why I've decided to serve. I'm invested in their future, so I need to be invested in their community. So that would be my first reason. With that being said, very similar to Tina. I started attending Board of Ed meetings because my son was in kindergarten during COVID. And I was like, what's happening? And it was frustrating being at home and only being able to watch Board of Ed meetings through YouTube and not be able to participate. Then the meetings opened up and I was like, oh, I'm going to go participate. I had no idea what that was going to be like. And in that experience, as being a parent showing up for the first time at a Board of Ed meeting, signing my name on a slip of paper, having to say my name and address at a table to 9 people who I have no idea who they are, to talk to them and nobody can talk back to me, just a very unsettling almost experience. So for me, I serve because I think we can do better at hearing our community. And I think we have to find alternative ways to hear our community, that a Board of Ed meeting is not the only place where our community is and thrives. And we have to find ways to hear our students and hear our youth. We have to find ways to hear our families in different ways. We have to find ways to hear our community partners. Like I mentioned, there's a time of opportunity. And I think if we can work together and be effective and efficient in what we're doing and truly understand the needs of our students, our families, and our community and our schools, because there's various needs that are going on, how do we work together? How do we understand those needs and find the solutions that work? And I serve because I know I have personal experience as a mom, but also professional experience where I understand standards and regulations and school policy across the state, that I can bring that information and knowledge and share it in my role as a Board of Ed member. So I serve for my little ones, but I serve because I believe we have a community that can do better.
Thank you. All right, John, why do you serve the town of Enfield?
Well, I serve the town of Enfield. So I think back to when growing up in this town all my life and family roots that are tied to this town. And I left for college and was up in Vermont. And it was a homesick feeling a lot of the times. And I found myself coming back to Enfield. And when I came back to Enfield, something clicked where I was ready to officially call this place as a kid just coming back from college, this place home. So I wanted to get involved. I wanted to give back to a community that I grew up in, that I made friends in, that I played sports in. And when the opportunity came for the Board of Education, it's changed my life, honestly, because if it wasn't for the last 2 years of being on the Board of Education, I wouldn't have necessarily appreciated or found that extreme love for education that has led me to professions that I'm in now. And I look back on how life-changing it's been over the last 2 years and how much it's opened me up to. And I owe that all to the community of Enfield and for people to give me that opportunity to learn and to grow with them and to see through challenges and grow as an individual and see the town grow as a whole.
Awesome. Thank you. Scott, last but not least, why do you serve the town of Enfield?
1, 2. For 3 reasons. As I mentioned earlier, this is where my kids are growing up. This is where they are matriculating and becoming the adults that they're going to be for the rest of their lives. Secondly, to support our superintendent and the administration of Enfield Public Schools, and that includes our building's principals and our vice principals. And thirdly, for my teacher friends who were heroes in March of last year when all of our buildings closed. You saw these Facebook posts, they deserve $1 million because all of a sudden the parents all became teachers. They deserve paid vacations. They deserve gold stars. These teachers are the godsends. How do they do what they do? And now some people are frustrated with our teachers because of different things. They think they're, not doing the jobs that we're asking them to do. And I can tell you that today specifically, from 9 a.m. until almost 3 o'clock, I was at Hazardville, or at Eli Whitney, managing their book fair. And I got to thinking about, our schools being closed for a while and so much of this being virtual, and how our fourth graders at Eli Whitney just attended their first in-person book fair since they were second graders at Hazardville. They had been in this building for 2 years, and something that we do twice a year, every fall and every spring, and we have our in-person book fairs, and they light up. They were so excited, and Mr. Ryder's back. This is so great. So I do what I do for those 3 reasons, and I can summarize it by just saying for trying to enhance everybody's school experience, to give everybody the best school experience, whether you're a student, a parent, a teacher, or one of our administrators. I want you to have the best school experience possible, and anything that I can do to help that occur or support that to any of those groups, that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Scott. I will tell you that the Scholastic Book Fair was one of my favorite experiences in school too. In my day, because I'm old, we had slap bracelets, which became illegal because I might have been one of the people that cut my wrist with a slap bracelet once upon a time. So if y'all get elected, do not have slap bracelets for your children. That's not healthy. We're coming in for a landing, but I do want to make one more pass in front of you. We're going to do this quickly, so I'm going to give you the instruction of at least one sentence, no more than 3. Can we make that deal? And that is this. I'm going to assume that all 10 of you are elected. And wouldn't that be a great world to live in? I'm going to assume that all 10 of you are elected. So hypothetically, you get elected. What is one thing that you want to accomplish in this term? John, you're up first.
I would like to see that all of our students are treated the same, that they're treated fairly and with dignity. That's what I'd like to see.
Awesome. Gerald, what's one thing that you want to accomplish this term?
I would like to see an expansion of school-based mental health centers.
Okay, I said one sentence, and I get it. Good job. Gold star. What would you like to accomplish this term?
With all the issues and concerns of the parents, I would like to see parents and students and teachers comfortable with what's going on, just to make sure it's going to be a productive school year. So we won't be burdened down with about wearing masks or vaccines or curriculum, but I hope that it's all resolved.
Thank you, Jane. Joshua, one thing you want to accomplish this term?
Oh, that question changed. Well, the accomplishment I'd like to see all the children that are in the schools right now reach the end of the school year with 0 viruses, 0 concerns with their pandemic-related issues, and no masks having to be worn at the end of the school year, so that they can smile and hug each other and have a great summer in the 2022 year.
Thank you. Teresa, you get elected November 2nd. What do you want to accomplish the next term?
I would like to see more transparency for not only the parents, but the community as a whole in all things that are occurring within the curriculum and the policies and so forth.
All right. Tina, the next term, what gets accomplished?
I would like to continue to put the health and safety of our children first and make sure they finish off this school year in person 5 days a week. And I want our school district to make all students feel like Enfield Public Schools hears them, sees them, and it's a safe place for them.
Awesome. Janet, you get elected November 2nd. What do you want to accomplish in the new term?
I agree with what Tina said, really, about having all students feel safe and heard, but also just that for parents to be able to feel like they can feel comfortable coming to our meetings to express their concerns without any kind of fear.
Thank you. Amanda, what do you want to accomplish in the new term?
I think, kind of going back to my last answer, I hope to increase stakeholder involvement, parent voice, teacher voice, student voice, community voice in our decision making, and to really work hard at working smarter, not harder.
All right. John?
Well, given the challenges of the last 2 years, in the next upcoming 2 years, I'd like to see a full recovery of what school looked like back at the end of 2019, and I think that's doable.
Thank you. Scott, what would you like to accomplish in the new term?
Again, I want to see a level playing field for all of our students to be safe, to feel safe, to learn safely, to feel comfortable in our buildings, and to also increase communications with our families and have, like you were alluding to, some sort of, community forums with our parents and our staff where everybody feels like their voice is being heard and everybody's input is accepted and hopefully implemented.
Wonderful. All right, friends, I appreciate your thoughtful responses to every one of these questions so far, but I have one last question that is more important than all of the other questions combined. We're going to do this by a show of hands. How many of you have faith that the University of Georgia Bulldogs will be #1 in the nation by the end of this season? You can answer this too. All right. Friends, let us give another round of applause for each of our candidates. Thank you to everyone who came. Thank you to those of you who are watching at home who have been with us for this past hour. I have just a couple of closing announcements before we end our time here together. And that is that we have one last faith exchange for the year, and that will be next Monday, 7 p.m. in this very room. You are welcome to come here in person or watch at home online, and that will be with our candidates for town council at-large seats. If you missed out on the district seats, scroll back in the YouTube channel and you will see those people as well. Then, just church announcements, but these are fun. Please come. I love Halloween. I love Halloween. It's kind of sick how much I love Halloween. And so on Friday evening, this Friday that is coming right around the corner, we are going to have free pizza, popcorn, drinks out on the front lawn of the church. That is at 6 o'clock, and we will be watching the best Halloween movie that there ever was. No questions asked, all other answers are wrong, and that is Halloween Town. So come out on Friday at 6 o'clock. Also, we will be having a Halloween organ concert in this very room. That will be on October 29th. If you are not on TikTok, you should be, and Wesley Hall is TikTok famous. He will be giving our organ concert on October 29th. And finally, we will be having a fall festival. This is the Saturday before Halloween, October 30th, where we will have trunk or treat. Have your kids come and get lots of candy. We will have hot dogs and bounce houses, because nothing says a good time like a kid throwing up candy in a bounce house. And that will be 3 to 6 p.m. on Saturday, October 30th. Friends, until I see you again, good night.